Hello, and welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I am your host, Ron Houghton. Joining me, as always, is Darren.
Yep.
And Paul.
Hello.
Today we are going to be reviewing the Lego Batman movie, starring Will Arnett, Michael Cera, Rosario Dawson, Ralph Fiennes, and Zach Galifianakis. Later on, we'll do our RANT and RAVE segment. But first, let's see what's going on in the entertainment world with...
You, on the mark!
Okay, before we begin today, I want to send out a quick message to our missing compadre, Ivan, who suffered a terrible accident last week. We all wish you a very speedy recovery.
He's riding the pine on this one.
Indeed.
Of course, you are missed, Ivan. Get well soon.
Little wooden boy.
Yes.
You have heard it all by now, Ivan, I'm sure, but...
Ivan's trying out for the remake of Pinocchio. If anybody wants to know what happened to Ivan, has anybody seen the original Evil Dead when that girl gets raped by the tree? It was a little bit like that.
Not too far off.
Nope.
Jesus. Some quick tidying up. One of our frequent listeners noticed on the last podcast that I said that the biopic film Man on the Moon was about Charlie Kaufman. It is, of course, not. It is about Andy Kaufman. And we forgot to comment on the passing of legendary actor John Hurt, a favorite of mine. I'm sure a favorite of all of you.
We're all big fans, and we're remiss to have not mentioned his passing.
Yeah, somehow it just got lost in the shuffle. I think we had done so many celebrity deaths and did that year in review. I kind of missed it, but we definitely owe this guy some sort of tribute.
Absolutely.
Just looking at his IMDb page, this guy was consistently working in the business
He was literally in every
last
movie
40
made.
years.
Literally. That is not a figurative description at all.
And I didn't realize until after his passing that he was the Elephant Man. Like, I've heard the clips all the time. I've never seen the movie. Well, I might have seen it when I was a kid, but I didn't have any connection that was him.
See, that's probably the first movie I even think of when I hear John Hurt. He's really amazing in that film.
And I think of a couple things. I think of, well, obviously he was in the Harry Potter franchise, but I think more of him being an alien.
For sure. Maybe the classic scene. When you think of the movie Alien, you're probably thinking of that one scene.
Yeah,
most people maybe forget that it's John Hurt is the one on the table. You know, one of the most iconic scenes in movie history he's a part of right there.
And he also did something with Jim Henson called Storytellers. And they go through old European myths and folklore and bring them to life. It was something.
Is that for television?
Yeah, and it was released on DVD years ago. My buddy Troy introduced me to it when we watched it. It was really good. And he plays the storyteller. He's the host of the show and introduces you and leads you through the folklores. Yeah, it's really, really well done.
He had one of the most distinctive voices in movies too, because growing up, I remember him mostly from two animated films. He was one of the lead voices in Watership Down, and he was Aragorn in the animated Lord of the Rings movie.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
brilliantly.
know that.
He's really great in it.
But a long time
It's been a long time as well, yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic in that. Just to name a few more, A Man for All Seasons, Midnight Express. He was Winston Smith. That's 1984. Is that about the only screen version of that film ever done? I think
it's the most notable one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, maybe there's been some TV versions, but I think that's the only theatrical version.
Yeah, he's the lead in that. Later films are Rob Roy, Dead Man, Contact. He worked with Lars von Trier a few times at Dogville and Melancholia. He had a big role in V for Vendetta.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, he was great in that. He had that small role in Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
He's great in that.
Snowpiercer from a few years ago.
And I want to mention roughly the same time period as Alien, Heaven's Gate, which is not a movie with a heavy dose of problems, but man, does he deliver a great performance in that film.
I think he's the kind of actor that even if you may not recognize his voice, the minute you show somebody his picture, they immediately know who you're talking about. They've seen something with him. Like you said, he's had a pretty prolific career.
Yeah. For two overlooked films that I remember him from, one is called 10 Rillington Place. It's a Richard Fleischer movie with Richard Attenborough. Attenborough plays a true life serial killer, and John Hurt is kind of the man living upstairs. It's a really interesting film from the early 70s. And did you ever see the movie Scandal?
No.
With Joanne Whalley. I think she was Kilmer at the time. It's directed by Michael Caton Jones, and it involves the Profumo scandal. I think that's what it was called. It was, I think it was in the mid-70s. So basically, it tells the tale of all of these British politicians and diplomats who had this kind of organized sex ring going on in Parliament with bringing in high-priced hookers and stuff. And he's kind of the central character in that movie, his relationship with this woman. It's a fantastic movie. Ian McKellen's really good in it. One of the first things I ever saw him in. Yeah,
I've never seen
I recommend that for sure. Yeah, big talent. Will be missed. In new news, this is interesting. Bad Robot Productions and Stephen King are joining up to produce a new series on Hulu called Castle Rock. This is going to be a 10-episode series set in King's fictional town in Maine, and it's going to be some sort of multiverse kind of thing, incorporating the majority of his books. I haven't read every Stephen King book, so I'm not sure all the ones that take place in Castle Rock, but I think it's going to be almost like the woman Annie Wilkes from Misery in one episode, and like 2 doors down, maybe it's the dog from Cujo is tied up. I don't know how they're going to incorporate this all into one town, but
even the ones that don't take place in Castle Rock, there's so many of them take place in the same universe. And he references them on his website through the Stand or the Dark Tower connection, whether it's the time traveling or the dimension traveling that many of the characters do. There's very few Stephen King novels and stories that aren't connected in even a minor way. So there's a potential wealth of material to make a series.
But of course, you wouldn't be dealing with the individual stories from each novel either. It's more incorporating the characters.
That sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah, it does. It's definitely unique.
Yeah.
Hulu? Come on.
I know. Good luck trying to find it.
There's other ways of seeing it.
There may be that we do not necessarily condone.
No. Of all the shared universes that everybody's trying to throw together, this sounds like one of the more interesting ventures for sure.
And like Darren was saying, like this could incorporate different time periods. Maybe it doesn't even all take place in one decade, right? You could hop around in different decades, tell different stories, different generations of characters. Yeah, this sounds like an interesting project anyways. I don't know if they're, who they're lining up to star or direct in these things, but it was just announced.
Sounds like it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a production date set, so I assume that this would be coming out probably sometime in mid-2018. Okay, in other news, Mel Gibson is in talks to direct Suicide Squad 2. Warner Brothers has been having meetings with him. Totally. This is a guy who kind of came out against comic books during the Hacksaw Ridge publicity tour.
Basically saying that, why would you have a budget for something like that? But yeah, exactly.
I think his movie opened the same weekend as Doctor Strange, and he was kind of going around saying, my movie's about a real life superhero, not some fake guy. Whatever. And that has nothing to do with this, but
it's strange that he would say something so controversial. And
yes, it's about a -2 on Mel Gibson's controversial scale.
So does this mean he's out of director jail now?
Yeah, apparently with Hacksaw Ridge's reception, for sure, I would say that. Mel Gibson, he is such a great director.
He's a great director.
And has such a fine command of story, usually in all of his pictures. This is kind of a welcome relief to anybody who wants a good DC movie. He knows how to make a great movie.
Absolutely, he does. And knows how to get the best performances out of actors.
Which is why he said why he's intrigued in the project anyways. It's not so much a comic book thing. He's not interested in the material as much as the talent.
But this is a really important win if DC can actually negotiate.
I didn't think I could get excited about a DC movie, especially Suicide Squad. And this is... You've got me excited.
Well, and I think he's got the weight behind him that the criticism for DC is that they're kind of the Zack Snyder thing where things are hammered into a certain direction. I think we mentioned it last podcast how, like a Marvel will let people play within the universe, whereas DC seems to be very much going for the one vision, even though they keep changing that one vision. I think Mel Gibson's got enough weight that he can say, well, I'm going to make the movie I want to make.
Yeah, maybe DC's finally getting to the point where they're thinking, let's just have a good movie. Let's just skip all the multiverse stuff for a while and just, can you just make us a good movie, please, that people will like?
And he'll take the time to make sure it's good. He doesn't just whip out a movie for the sake of it. He does it because it's a bit of a passion project, so I think he'll have something invested in this film that'll make it a better experience.
Yeah, I agree, and I think DC needs this win with all the negativity surrounding the Batman project and whatever's going on there.
Yeah, who knows what their state will be by the time this comes around.
I'd love to see his vision. I mean, just saying, like you said, he knows how to direct action, and I'm up for his vision of what a Suicide Squad movie would be.
Yeah, that'd be your first Academy Award-winning director helming a comic book movie. So, could be interesting.
That's something.
Okay, in other news, this just broke today. The Irishman. This is Martin Scorsese's long gestating project about a
He has
hitman.
a lot of long gestating projects.
He
under his
does.
belt.
Yeah, at least, well, one more knocked off the list with Silence, finally. This is based on a novel about a famous hitman named Frank Sheeran, who was this famous hitman for the mob, supposedly whacked Jimmy Hoffa. So anyways, Netflix has just picked up the producing duties on this movie, $100 million production. So this is pretty big for them.
That's nice.
Wow.
And
I'd like to see Scorsese get decent budgets.
absolutely. And just the fact that they're getting behind this movie and there's not going to be any haggling and waiting around for Scorsese to get to business again, because he can spend years looking for financing for his films sometimes, which is such a crime. But, yeah, do you know the talent lined up for this?
No.
Talk about bringing the boys back
return of
together.
De Niro, isn't it?
Right. Robert De Niro would star as Frank Sheeran, and Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, and Harvey Keitel is being courted to play Jimmy Hoffa.
Oh, wow.
So that's all of Scorsese's,
Wow.
you know. Yeah, I mean, maybe DiCaprio, he can fit in for a small role somewhere.
And it would be the first Pacino teaming with
Scorsese,
and
right.
any-
They've never worked
for
together.
sure, as a director. He hasn't even produced a Scorsese movie, has he?
No,
Or
and,
produced a Pacino movie.
right. And De Niro and Scorsese haven't worked together since Casino.
Casino, yeah. It's been 20 years plus.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, this could be a project well worth waiting for.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And did I mention Joe Pesci?
You did?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not on board for sure because he's still somewhat in semi-retirement. But if anything's going to bring him back out, it'll be this. And he's kind of committed to this, that he would play this role if it ever gets going. So, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this project sounds awesome. I should mention it's also, the screenplay is written by Steven Zalian.
Nice.
So, I mean, the talent behind this thing is going to be unreal.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see Scorsese have a big giant hit after Silence kind of flopped.
Are they going to release it theatrically, or is it?
Oh, I would imagine.
I
can't imagine that this would just be for...
I just hear that Netflix, and I get a little worried it's just going to be direct to the small screen.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm sure that they're partnering up with somebody else, like Paramount or somebody else.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're paying for producing the film, and who knows who's going to distribute
someone
it.
will distribute it.
Exactly. Yeah, great news for Scorsese. Can't wait to see that.
I have one minor thing to add. And for the sake of comic book movies, it was announced today that Hellboy 3 is for sure dead.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, I didn't want to make you sad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I loved the first one, really enjoyed the second one. It was kind of one of those fledgling projects that you kind of didn't think was ever going to get made anyways, but sounds like...
Again, another, like we were just mentioning with Scorsese, another director with way too many things on his slate.
Yeah, well, it's an older
Understandable.
franchise, and neither of the first two really performed great.
Yeah, which is too bad because I preferred the Golden Army, the second one over the first. I thought it was getting better as it went.
Well, and I think it did something really well that you don't always see in a sequel, where it actually expanded the world. It didn't
sure. That's what I mean, right?
Yeah, it didn't try to retread what the original did. It actually expanded the universe. It introduced something
I liked it
new.
a lot, too.
Yeah, like it was a second installment, not just a sequel for sequels' sake. So it's unfortunate, but not totally surprising either. So.
Yeah, that one's been circling
The drain
for for a few years, unfortunately. But even with Del Toro's all his popularity and everything that he's got going, he couldn't get
Perlman
going.
has been really campaigning hard. It's funny,
well, for good reason.
Well, and I guess he had a funny thing on Twitter where he tweeted saying, out of work superhero who likes to smoke and etc. At least he's taking it with a good sense.
I'm sure he'll have a role in whatever Del Toro movie comes out, anyways.
Yeah, odds are he's okay.
Yeah, that's too bad about that. Okay, shall we move on to our feature review?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Master Bruce, your greatest fear is... Snakes? No. Clowns? No. It's being a part of a family again.
No, now it's snake clowns.
Hello, secret camera.
It's the Batcave! Do I get a costume? I love it, but his pants are just a little tight. I got an idea. Rip! It's better!
I can only look you in the eyes right now.
Hi, Batman!
Come catch your greatest enemy. Superman is my greatest enemy.
Superman's not a bad guy!
Then I am fighting a few different people. I like to fight around. Initialize master build.
You got it!
Here you go. I need the macaroni.
Why did you build this with one seat?
Because last I checked, I only had one butt. The Lego Batman movie. Rated PG.
Okay, the IMDb synopsis. Bruce Wayne must not only deal with Gotham City's criminal supervillains, but also the responsibility of raising the young boy he has recently adopted. What did we think of the Batman Lego movie, guys?
I thought it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a different take on what you're used to seeing out of a Batman movie, especially recently. They actually made a Batman movie fun, a DC movie fun, lighthearted. So yeah, I'd say overall I enjoyed it. Not the deepest movie by any means, but if you're just looking for a fun outing with your family or your man-child like me, then yeah, it's worth checking out, I think.
Yeah, lighthearted, fun, frivolous romp at the movies. There's not a lot of substance here. It's probably 20 to 30 minutes longer than it needs to be. There's a lot of overblown Jerry Bruckheimer-esque Lego action in this film. And some of it's great. Some of it really works well in that overblown parody style, but there's a lot of it. Thumbs up. It's a good film, and kids are going to eat it up. I, as an adult, did not need to see it in the theater, but I did for our podcast review, and don't regret it, but it's not going to be in my top 10 list of the year, but it's a good time at the movies, like you say, Paul.
I actually thought some of the little in-jokes were going to fly right over the heads of kind of what the target audience is. I guess they put that stuff in there for the parents that are seeing it with the kids, but a lot of the jokes, I thought, yeah, I don't see a lot of 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds that are in the theater that are going to catch these jokes.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
And if it wasn't for those, it would be an excruciating movie to sit through as an adult.
I would even think, I did like the movie quite a bit. I would think the joke ratio was probably even skewed more to adults. Maybe 70-30.
I'd agree.
I was laughing quite a bit in this, more than most feature comedies that I see. Yeah, I thought this was very entertaining. Did we like the Lego movie?
I did.
Yeah, I thought this was not as good as the Lego movie.
Yeah, me neither. It's not up to that.
Something that it did better is, well, I won't maybe say too much for those who haven't seen the Lego movie, but something happens at the end of the Lego movie that didn't work at all for me, and this movie avoids anything like that.
You mean the whole merging with
the
reality?
Exactly, the live action segment, I'll say.
I find when animated movies choose to do that, choose to clash real life with animation, you've really got to be careful, because I look at something like Happy Feet, where they do something at the end too, where they merge live action with animation, and to me, it pulls you right out if it's not done right. And I'd agree with the Lego movie. It was my least favorite part of it, where, yeah, I can see the heart. It just kind of undoes everything you built.
They do that twice in the Lego Batman movie, and I think it works both times when they do it.
I think having now seen 2 feature-length Lego movies, I don't ever need to see another one. I've seen plenty of Lego animated films now to last me for years. I've seen a couple of the shorter TV-made films or home video-made films that are 20 to 30 minutes long. That's the perfect length, I think, for Lego movies. It worked really well with the Lego movie and worked pretty well here, but there's another Lego movie already slated for, I think, this summer.
Yeah, well, we got the trailer for it before.
Ninjago.
Yeah.
Ninjago. I'm sure every kid must know that, a little out of our wheelhouse, but it's probably based on a toy or something? Or is it a game?
There's so many different lines of Lego these days, and yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I don't think I could manage a Lego movie every year. I don't think they could keep this quality up, and even if they did with the same sort of machine gun style joke mentality, that the formula would work that often.
And I think they kind of had to balloon the running time of this a little bit, like Darren said, where you'd have these long action sequences that were maybe inflated just that little bit more to kind of pad the runtime a little bit. So there's not a lot of meat on the bone, so to speak, but I mean, it's very entertaining what they do, but is it all necessary? Probably not. So yeah, I agree. You could probably cut half an hour off of it and be just as good.
If it wasn't for those consistent jokes, it'd be a lot tougher to sit through, but I like their commitment to some of the jokes too. The sound of lasers in the Lego universe is someone saying pew, and they commit to that for the entire film, and I always get enjoyment and smile every time I hear pew, 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 pew on the soundtrack. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, I like the overall story of this Batman movie too. This is definitely a different Batman than we've seen before, right? This is
the rock star Batman.
Well, he is not even really the rooting interest in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Did anybody else notice this, that it's almost Donald Trump as Batman?
I didn't. But...
how great he thinks he is and how wonderful he is. And even in one of the songs, how he claims how proud he is that he doesn't pay taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
And that song was a great point in the movie as well, the Batman song.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of a Batman who's kind of the foil in his own movie. Like, he just can't get things right. And
His own worst enemy.
For
at
sure.
times.
And Will Arnett, I think, really nails this guy. He's it's almost like Job from Arrested Development as Batman. He's so full of himself, right?
Yeah.
I think the voice cast was really strong. Like,
Absolutely.
I think they nailed everybody.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of the voice cast and things that made me laugh every time I heard it, whoever it was doing Bane, every time Bane spoke up was just fantastic.
Doing his best Tom Hardy impersonation.
That was great.
Yeah, there's not much of a plot here that we can talk about. It's really, the fun would be to talk about spoilers anyway. So let's get into spoiler territory now.
Sure.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
I'll just name you a few things that I loved about this movie. The voiceover opening credits, I was already laughing over Black. I was already chuckling and laughed more before the movie started than I did in all of Ghostbusters. So how, if you want to relate comedies, you know, bat shark repellent.
Yes.
There's a lot of nods to Batman 66 in this. It's hilarious.
More than there is to any of the Tim Burton era Batman, I'd say.
Yeah,
I love the fact that Ralph Fiennes is in this movie and he's not the voice of Voldemort.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I was going to mention that too.
Well, interestingly, don't even remember the character speaking in the film, or very little, but in the end credits, I noticed Billy D. Williams.
He's next on
Yeah. I was
Billy D. Williams as Two-Face.
That's fantastic.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of in-jokes here for people who, like you said, right. There's kids won't even know this joke, but for all of us, it's like, of course we know Billy D. Williams was in the original Tim Burton Batman movie and should have been scheduled to play Two-Face in the sequel.
But was replaced by...
But was later replaced by
further than Harvey Dent.
Well, and I recently saw an interview on the supplemental materials of the 89 Batman, and it was an interview with him, and he was stating how he specifically took the role in that 89 movie because he thought it would lead into him being Two-Face. He wanted to explore the character in that way, and unfortunately, as we all know, that didn't happen. But yeah,
28 years later.
28 years later. And I agree, Darren. I don't really remember much of speaking from him at all.
No, I mean, there's so many villains.
No,
it's
pretty limited. Yeah, every Batman villain in comic history is in this.
It's true.
From Condiment King to have, that's a real character.
Is that a real?
Yeah.
Are some of these guys real?
They're all real.
And
wow.
I love the fact that they even say, you're making some of these up.
Google it.
It's worth a Google.
And, it's unbelievable. Okay, what else did I like? That was definitely on the list, though. When they go to the Fortress of Solitude. Okay, when you first see the Fortress of Solitude, did you notice, you hear just the opening?
Did I
John
notice?
Williams? Did you notice? Of course. Right.
My wife noticed, and if she's going to notice, Darren's going to notice.
That's the actual 1978 film score, too, from Superman the movie.
Nice.
It's not re-recorded. Yeah.
Right. And then inside the Fortress of Solitude, you meet during the 76th annual Justice League party, which matches up exactly with the release of Brave and the Bold.
Yeah.
First appearance of Justice League. Like, it's awesome. Who do we see inside? The Super Friends. And not only the Super Friends, we see Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, El Dorado, the Wonder Twins. I have not seen these characters since I was 8.
The Wonder Twins are there with Gleek. Like, they've got the full cast.
Hilarious.
And Batman wasn't invited.
Yeah. Right. the Wonder Twins are there. Batman isn't.
Awesome. It's that's all just for us. People our age. And
speaking of all that, the Brando.
Right, to have Brando. Right.
Well, and it really sets the tone early when, right at the beginning of the movie, the Joker's going through, he's talking to that guard, and they said, whatever, Batman's going to catch you anyways. Mm-hmm. And there's a throwaway reference to The Dark Knight where he mentions the two boats.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you don't know what that is, it's just whatever, okay.
Better than the two boats.
And I think the next line is, or the parade.
Yeah.
Which means from 1989's movie, right? Yeah. I mean, this movie really is like 100 minutes of inside jokes, really. Yeah. Like I said before with the ratio, I can't remember how many jokes were for kids, but not many. I think it's mostly the spectacle is for the kids,
And
but
that's-
almost all of the jokes are for the adults in the audience.
And I'd agree with that. That was my takeaway too, is that definitely, the action and the crazy events of the movie were for the kids, but definitely the jokes were aimed at.
It's those kind of in-jokes that really work for me. Some of the modern humor that this movie does a lot of is all those needle drops and slow motion zoom ins on characters' faces, which is a pretty tired gag in modern comedies. It's been done to death for 15 years now, and this movie really loves it. The audience ate it up, so maybe I'm in the minority, but just an example of some of the humor that didn't work as well for me.
Yeah, definitely a lot of kids in the audience. I'll bring this up as a segue. Yes, one of the great new things in cinema with being able to pre-buy your tickets and pick your own seats. No more lineups, and you always make sure that you get the one seat in the theater that you want. But of course, the one problem with that is when you pick your seat out, you have no idea if you're going to be sitting in front of 4 6-year-olds.
Right.
Like I was.
Me too.
And when your theater is full, you have no choice to move around to another seat either. So you're kind of stuck with where you're at. There's no way I would have ever sat down in a seat in front of children.
No.
Ever.
And I
would never have taken that chance.
You've mentioned that before, and I was thinking of you when we were waiting for the movie to start. Yeah, luckily, we could have moved if we wanted to, but same thing where we had a bunch of rambunctious kids behind us, and I thought, oh no, is this going to take away from the movie? But once the credits rolled, they were quiet, few outbursts here or there, but watching a kid's movie, you take it
I had a few kids around me ask their parents some questions really loud, and it was more cute and funny than annoying. They weren't being poorly behaved. They were just being little kids asking questions about what they were seeing. And I had no problems with my audience.
But you are taking your chance now when you pick your seat, just
definitely.
randomly. It's nice to have a good seat in the theater, but I'll take a terrible seat in the theater if I'm not sitting next to someone obnoxious either.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely. Yep. I agree.
sorry, that's just something I wanted to get off my chest.
That's Ron's rant.
Yeah, that'll be my rant.
It's an important subject to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, back to the film. Is there anything, that we didn't like about the movie? I guess, for me, it really is just a joke factory, this movie. Either you laughed a lot when you left the theater or you didn't. But for me, I was laughing consistently. If I had a problem with the movie, it probably runs a little bit too long.
Runs a little long. There's nothing groundbreaking here, and story-wise, everybody coming together, and, we have to work as a team.
A few people have said Joker's plan in this is better than most supervillains' plans in most movies. It actually is pretty good. To get captured and sent into Phantom Zone to pick up stronger villains, to come back.
Well, that's true.
That's one benefit that you get a property like Lego, and because they've got the rights to so many different things, you see that cross-pollination of properties that you would never see anywhere else. You get Harry Potter mixed with these.
Okay, who are all the villains in the Phantom Zone?
Mixed with Warner Brothers as well,
right.
Their properties.
We've got Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
And you know what was
We've
great?
got the Jaws from
the shark from Jaws, which is a bad guy. He's just an animal doing his thing, but he's been banished to the Phantom Zone.
You got King Kong,
right?
The creature from the Black Lagoon, wasn't it? Or
it looked like
it was a Godzilla-like villain,
right?
Without being a direct ripoff of Godzilla.
Right, exactly.
I'm sure they couldn't pay Toho the rights for that.
But even the fact that Batman's password is Iron Man sucks.
I know,
right?
The payoff of some of those villains too. And I'll admit right now, I fell asleep in this movie for about 10 or 12 minutes.
Is that right? Really?
I did. And
it's so very loud.
Oh, I must have been exhausted.
Yeah. Not as loud as the last Resident Evil, I'll tell you that much.
But so maybe I missed the introduction or how some of the villains came about, but I was watching and I was, what are all these men in black? There's a lot of men in black in this movie and they're not doing anything. And then when the Mr. Smith payoff happened, okay, those aren't men in black. I see what's going on there. It was pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're having fun with a lot of the different properties. They have the rights to Star Wars, don't they?
There's Lego Star Wars, so
right. Could they conceivably do a Star Wars Lego movie if they wanted to?
I'm sure they need the go-ahead from Lucasfilm. I can't imagine they have any sort of film rights outside of Lucasfilm's approval.
Yeah, I'd say Darren's likely right in that. I mean, they produce games and whatnot, but you don't even see any.
Were there Lego?
There's
were there Star Wars characters in the Lego movie?
Yeah, there's the Falcon and Han Solo.
Oh yeah, right, of course,
right. And
so,
they do.
But they could maybe plug them into a property,
sets.
Right? But having an actual Star Wars Lego movie, maybe that's a whole other thing.
Could be. Well, and they do have a line of Lego movies, just short Lego movies that are Star Wars based.
Yeah, then the half-hour made-for-TV videos.
Is that right? Yeah, it's centered on Yoda, I think.
Some of them, I've seen a Return of the Jedi 20-minute Lego movie, which is pretty funny. And
Are these on Netflix?
Yeah, you'll find a lot of them on Netflix.
Yep. So, yeah, like whether they could incorporate that into into a movie like
I'm
this.
sure they'd
like
love
if they
to,
had
but...
Vader. Yeah, exactly. Like have Darth Vader.
You'd think they'd have had him if they could. So.
Yeah. Maybe they're under strict ordinance to not include them.
Or planning a Star Wars Lego movie. Who knows?
Absolutely.
Saving it for that.
Would you guys want to see a Star Wars Lego movie?
The Star Wars Lego shows I've seen so far are very enjoyable and very funny. And if it maintains
But is it more in the same vein as they're, tongue in cheek, mostly making fun of the property itself? Or is it actually like telling
I'd say
you?
So it's, to me, pretty close to the style of humor of the Robot Chicken Star Wars shows.
Right.
I enjoy, as much as I may love the property, I've got no problem watching the Family Guy episodes where they make fun of it, or like you mentioned, the Robot Chicken where they make fun of it. I mean, I'd be curious to see what they did with it.
Yeah, if you can't
sure.
laugh at your favorite things, you got some
You
problems.
take it way too seriously, yeah.
I mean, I always remember a billboard in one of the, Droid Tales or Yoda Chronicles Lego shows that I saw for advertising Admiral Snack Bar. just to have that kind of clever sense of humor is very respectable.
Yeah.
Well, judging from the success of this Lego Batman movie, we're going to be seeing more Lego movies for sure.
Were they planning a Lego Batman movie, or was it just how well he was received in the actual Lego movie that made them think they could do this?
With how long productions take on these type of thing, it would have had to have been started before the Lego movie came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done by a first-time director, Chris McKay. I think he was an editor on the Lego movie, so he got a bump up. He did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. It might also be my favorite Robin ever. I really liked Robin in this film. He's just, what a guy. Yeah, how could you not like this kid?
Yeah. Well, and I didn't even realize that it was
Michael Cera
until the credits
I knew
rolled.
it was before I saw the movie, but I had forgotten. And same thing. I didn't pick up on it during the movie at all. I just noticed it again during the credits.
Yeah. But yeah,
well done.
It's very clever. I like the fact that every iteration of Batman that is incorporated into this movie and is an aspect of his personality. They go through everything.
Even the serials, the black and white serials that are referenced.
Yeah.
And even posters.
Yeah.
Some of the artwork and design for the movies, they reference that. Yeah, it's this movie's going to have, I think, a lot of rewatchability. I think I must have missed some of the jokes. I must have, because there was just so many flying by me constantly. So
I was on the fence whether I'd buy it or not, and that's saying something because I'm a huge Batman fan, but I just wasn't sure how much rewatchability there would be. But now that we're sitting here and talking about it, I'm a little more warmed to the idea.
At the very least, there'd be a lot more to discover on a second viewing.
Yeah, I do wish Ivan was here for this one, because I'm sure he has. Yeah, I'm sure he has lots of things to say about it. I'm sure.
For sure. He's
as a huge Batman fan, right? Yeah. I'm sure there's tons of things that absolutely delighted him.
Well, even the fact that you see the carousel of Batmobiles, I would just love to freeze frame that and just look at all of those.
Yeah, this movie's cram full. Somebody compared it to almost like the work of Zucker Brothers, like Airplane. It's that full of jokes.
It's definitely one if you just want a fun time.
If you've got kids, they're going to eat it up.
Yeah, this will be the first Batman movie Keaton watches, I assume, right?
We'll see. I might go right to Dark Knight. We'll see. But yeah, exactly. I'm not dying to see this movie again. But Keaton's 1.5 now, and I imagine in a few years this will be on the plate somewhere for me again.
You would think it would be almost kind of weird for a kid to watch this as his first experience with Batman
without having any context.
Yeah, because he comes across as such a dick.
Yeah. Well, and actually I heard somebody else talking about that. They had seen the movie and they were saying how they're not sure this would actually be their child's first Batman movie, because you're not going to have that understanding of who that character is supposed to be. And if this is who you think Batman's supposed to be, then the rest of the movie's not going to make any sense.
No, not at all.
And that's, I think, what makes it so funny is that he's a complete contrast to what we've grown to expect from that character, live in the shadows, and he certainly doesn't live in the shadows.
Oh, God, no.
Instead of making him selfless, making him a megalomaniac.
Right.
A good idea, whoever came up with that.
Yeah. Might be the most egotistical character I've ever seen in a movie. He's so in love with himself.
And the play on Commissioner, on Barbara Gordon, the play between those two characters is really well, and I think Rosario Dawson did a fantastic
she's great.
job.
She is also very good,
Yeah, she does a lot of voice work for DC.
She's great. I can't think of anything that I've seen her in that I haven't liked her. So.
And she's an actual comic book fan.
Which is nice.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, obviously your final thoughts.
Oh yeah, I definitely recommend it, and the more we talk about it, the more I want to see it again. And I'm a huge Batman fan, so a lot of the in jokes are great, and like Darren said, they'll carry the adults through the movie for sure. So definitely recommend it.
Me too. I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would. I was laughing all the way through it, so that's That's all that counts in a film like this.
Yeah, that's all you can want and expect is to come out of it smiling, have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Shall we move on to our rant and rave segment?
Yes, we shall.
Cool. Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first.
Dexter, what do you got?
I have got, as we pre-planned, 3 things this week. I've got a television, a music, and a movie. For television, are you guys familiar with the comic Eric Andre?
No.
I've seen him around.
Even Paul, if the name doesn't ring a bell, I'm sure you've seen him. He's got and this is what I'm going to rave about, a best described as D-list talk show on Adult Swim, where
D-list
where
is
he
saying, maybe F, but yeah.
Maybe F, and it's something to behold. I mean,
basically, from what I've seen, it's almost like, can he drive the guests off his show?
Almost anything will happen on this show. I mean, the episodes are only about 10 minutes, and that includes sketches where he goes out on the street and does various bits of comedy that don't work so well. It's the interviews that make it. And even some of those can be hit and miss. There's some fake interviews, like where someone comes in impersonating Jack Nicholson. Not very funny. Or say someone's in on the joke. Probably the biggest celebrity he's had has been Seth Rogen. And Seth Rogen knew what he was getting into, you could tell. And he was even in on a couple of the jokes. The best ones are when the people don't know what they're getting into. Like I said, anything can and will happen.
It's called The Eric Andre Show?
I think so. There's a lot of clips on YouTube. A lot on YouTube. There's longer segments edited together of some of the best moments. And maybe I'll try and share some of those on our Facebook page for viewers. Just if I were to say off the top of my head some of the best interviews, check out the Lauren Conrad interview. Mm-hmm. I don't know who Lauren Conrad is. I think she's on a reality show of some kind. But man, her interview involved Eric Andre vomiting on his own desk and eating it up.
Slurping might be the word.
Yeah, slurping up. They found out later on, I read that, I think he talked about this when he was on Hot Ones, but they have the same representation. So they ran into each other at their agent's office and had an awkward moment and then kind of reconciled. Sinbad, of all people, who's a comic himself and just was not willing to give an inch to Eric Andre, just not a good sport at all about what he was being put through. There was a great gag where I don't even know what it was about, really. Eric Andre had, one of those Wheel of Fortune-esque, okay, spin the wheel, Sinbad, and see what... But I think it was rigged to never stop. And it kept going and spinning. And Sinbad was visibly getting more and more angry and frustrated until he just stopped it himself, grabbed it. Okay, that's the one. That's where it stops. And he was not a good sport.
That's awesome. From what I've seen, he's not really trying to make fun of the guest.
No.
It's more of just having a completely absurd situation and see how far the guest can put up with it.
Yeah, I've never seen so many desks destroyed. Right, every episode has at least 1 to 5 destroyed desks. The set gets destroyed on a regular basis. There's a spot on his desk where it's a consistent hole that's rigged to do something different almost every episode. Like the coffee cup will be there and it'll spontaneously just pop off. Or it'll be a blender underneath in the hole and he'll just start feeding vegetables in it as he talks to the guest. Sometimes a fake penis will pop out of the hole and he will grab it and pretend like he's masturbating and then go to shake the guest's hand like he did with T.I., who then just would not shake Eric Andre's hand after Eric Andre had touched a fake penis. Mm-hmm. So it's just great seeing how poor some of the guests are able to take it and not take a joke.
And take themselves way too seriously.
Oh, yeah. It's his
manic
energy.
Some of the clips that I've seen, too, he can't take it too far, don't you think? Sometimes
he does, and some of the jokes fall flat in that way. Sometimes they just don't work. And he's said the interviews sometimes go on for an hour and a half, and he edits it down to the best 5 minutes out of that hour and a half. So who knows how terrible some of it was. But as far as manic energy goes, he makes Robin Williams look like a priest. It's just like he's willing to commit to absolutely anything.
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
Anything for a joke, his entire body he'll throw into it, and
it's more, his 100% commitment into what he's doing than actually really being funny. It's more shock humor.
It's not brilliant comedy. It's shock humor, and when it hits the mark, it's great. I've been doubled over crying, laughing at some of it. So if you get the right interview, Dennis Rodman comes to mind as another one.
And are you watching complete episodes of his show, or are you just checking out random clips?
I've been checking out clips on YouTube.
To me, he seems like a little bit like goes a long way with this guy.
Yeah, I'd say it would be tough to watch full episodes. The full interviews tend to be 2 to 5 minutes. So it's pretty easy to get through a couple interviews on YouTube, or there's many compilations that people put together of some of the better moments that are easy to watch too. So if you're into comedy like you've maybe never seen it before, check out the Eric Andre Show on Adult Swim and or YouTube.
Nice thing about people doing that, putting together montages too, is if you're wanting to check it out, you'll be able to tell really quickly whether it's for you or not, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, you'll know in seconds whether it's for you or not.
Yeah, watch any of the interviews I've referenced. Those ones are, to me, great ones to start with. And if you enjoy those, there's more out there to be had.
Excellent. All right, Paul, what do you got?
I will start off with comedy as well. Maybe not as...
Bizarre
as
vulgar
as Dexter's offering. I sunk my teeth into the Santa Clarita Diet, the Netflix series, starring Timothy Oliphant and Drew Barrymore. You get pretty much what you expect if you've seen the trailers. It does kind of the trope of playing on suburbia in California. And I heard somebody comment that they live in Santa Clarita and they nail the dynamic of the neighborhoods. It's fun. It's certainly not deep humor by any means. There's no subtext to the jokes. They play on the zombie trope quite a bit. It's
zombie
fun.
Trope.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about this thing.
I hadn't heard of it till you.
I didn't even know it was a series.
Started it. Yeah.
I just saw it on my Netflix queue and I assumed it was a movie.
Oh,
it's
no.
A show?
It's a show. It's 13 episodes, I think. The story is Timothy Oliphant and Drew Barrymore play a couple who are real estate agents in the Santa Clarita, California. And early on in the first episode, Drew Barrymore suffers a attack on her health, shall we say, and then she just gradually realizes she's becoming a zombie. So it kind of plays on that whole zombie and suburbia kind of trope that I mentioned. But it's clever. It's very enjoyable. It's the kind of show where you finish an episode and you do want to watch more.
Mm-hmm.
They do some interesting things, like she's a zombie, but she's cognizant. She's not just mindless and you can tell that they have fun with it. I haven't really seen Timothy Oliphant in a lot other than this. I know he gets a lot of acclaim for some of the other
Deadwood
stuff.
and Justified.
That's the one I was trying to think of. That it's a show that I've wanted to check out.
I've been a fan of his since the movie Go. Do you remember that one?
Oh, I love that
he
movie.
played. He was the drug dealer.
Oh, was he?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen
the nice drug dealer.
Yeah. But he kind of puts on for a lot of I'd say probably about 70 to 80% of the show. He kind of puts on what I would call a comedy voice, where it's very much a put on voice. But what makes his reactions funny are when he kind of breaks out of that. So I think it might be a conscious choice where it's kind of that superficial put on voice when he's interacting with neighbors, etc. And then you kind of get a true glimpse into what he really feels and what he truly thinks when he breaks out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of brings the humor in there. It's very much a family centric story where the family's dealing with what's happening to the mother, which is Drew Barrymore.
So is it like a zombie apocalypse, or it's just affecting her?
It's just affecting her, and they're trying to figure out what happened, how this even came about. Is there a cure? So it's the family kind of coming together to deal with this, and it has some pretty comedic moments. Not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
My problem is, and I'm not criticizing it because I haven't seen it, it's just I'm so tired of zombies that as soon as I hear zombie, I'm turned off. I don't want to even give it a chance. So it'd be a tough sell to get me to watch it unless you could tell me it was one of the most groundbreaking TV shows you've ever seen.
I couldn't say that. I could say it's entertaining, but I enjoy zombie-related stories.
Are you just a few episodes in, or have you finished it?
I finished it. My wife and I, we zipped through it pretty quickly. I think she enjoyed it.
Half an hour episodes?
Might be 40 minutes. It's been a couple weeks since we finished, so I can't remember. Not a long commitment, but enjoyable. Like, if you like Drew Barrymore, she's charming as she normally is.
She can be hit and miss for me, but I do really like Timothy Oliphant too.
So it's good, and it's very light. Like I said, there's not a lot of layered humor in there. It's somewhat one note, I guess, but it was enjoyable. I'd watch a second season. They kind of leave the characters in an odd place to the point where I didn't realize that was the season finale. I was expecting there to be another show. It's almost like they just truncated the story, and I can kind of see how it's a season finale, but it just seemed kind of jarring to me. That just seemed abrupt. So it was a little weird, but it's a charming show. I guess is probably the best way to put it. It's not groundbreaking, so you probably won't want to watch it. Just kind of a light check your brain at the door.
And it's pretty consistent throughout the whole series? Like if I watch 1 or 2 episodes, I'll know what I'm in for.
Yeah, if you watch the first episode and you enjoy it, then yeah, you can expect that that's what the remainder of the episodes are going to be.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, lighthearted, and if you're just in for something, little piece of fluff, then it's worth checking out.
Okay, that is the Santa Clara diet? Is that what it's called?
Santa Clarita.
Clarita. Okay.
On Netflix.
Excellent. Mine is also a TV show. This would be the new FX show Legion. This is from Fargo creator Noah Hawley. It's based on the Marvel Comics character. I'll give you the IMDb listing. Based on the Marvel Comics, Legion is the story of David Haller, a troubled young man who may or may not be human. If you don't know anything about the character, he's a mutant who's telepathic powers, so he can read minds. But as a kid, he had no idea he was a mutant, so he thought he was schizophrenic. So he's been pretty much institutionalized his whole life. The pilot is pretty much him. It's basically about him coming to grips with who he is and this secret organization who helps bring him, who knows who he is, and they take him to this place called Summerland where maybe other mutants are. There's a lot of mystery to the show, obviously. Everybody seems to know more about what's going on than the lead character.
So you're kind of along the ride with the main character.
Very much so, especially in the pilot. They do this kind of really neat thing, which is, because you're dealing with a schizophrenic, they tell the story in almost a fragmented way, so you're not even sure
what's reality and what's going on.
If you don't understand really what's going on, you're not supposed to, at least in my opinion. I know the character, and I was still just struggling to hang on, but it's worth it, because by the time you get to the second episode, which is all that's aired, you're on a lot more stable ground.
Did they touch on the origins of the character at all? And I don't want to say too much just because...
I can tell you right away that really this has nothing to do with the comics.
Yeah.
First off, the character was introduced back in the 80s in the New Mutants comic, created by Chris Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz. Have you read that run?
I haven't, but
it is an awesome
Chris
run.
Claremont,
yeah.
The minute
it's about a 20-issue run where he collaborated with the artist Bill Sienkiewicz. Do you know his work?
I'm not super familiar with
it. He did Moon Knight and
Moon Knight,
Elektra Assassin, things like that. Anyways, his work is amazing, and that run is something. It's taking that basic premise from the comics and kind of extrapolating that and
kind of really leaving his lineage behind.
Sure. If it has anything else to do with the Marvel Universe, including in the comic books, he's the son of Professor Xavier.
Right.
They have mentioned who his father is in the show, but I don't know if it's going to get into that kind of territory. It's pretty much just dealing with this basic concept of a telepathic schizophrenic mutant. Right. And
which at this point, I'd almost rather them treat it as a separate entity completely on its own and not try to tie it to X universe at all.
Yeah, I think that's a much wiser move, just keeping it on it's such a weird show anyways. It really wouldn't fit in with anything else that they're trying to do. It has a great costume and set design, at least in the pilot. It's very shades of Kubrick, Clockwork Orange. Lots of inspiration from that movie. The lead actor in the show is really good. His name is Dan Stevens. I think he was Matthew on Downton Abbey.
Yeah, that's where I know Dan Stevens from.
Right, he's terrific.
And actually, just seeing the trailer before Lego Batman for Beauty and the Beast, he's actually the Beast in the upcoming Disney live-action Beauty and the Beast.
Really? So excellent. He's getting a lot of work. He's fantastic in the show. He's playing a guy who's been growing up all his life being told that he has all of these mental deficiencies and stuff, and yet he's not crazy, right? He's a mutant with these powers. So it's him dealing with the fact that he's not as crazy as he thought he was his whole life. And again, the show has a lot of mystery elements to it. We're not sure who's behind everything. There's people who are out to capture him, of course. People who had him institutionalized knew who he was, and they were kind of keeping an eye on him until this other group kind of swept him away. Yeah, I can't wait to see where the show goes. It's definitely got a clear vision, like the fact that the guy, Noah Hawley, is behind it, the guy who did Fargo. I mean, Fargo was one of my favorite shows of the last few years, so I have a lot of confidence in his abilities.
How many episodes is the season supposed to be?
No idea. I think the normal FX show runs about, maybe 10 or 12?
That's what it was on Fargo, something like 10 or 12.
Yeah, which would be perfect for the show.
Definitely seems to be the way that most storytelling is going for most networks, other than the major networks that have the overinflated seasons. But that's good. More concise storytelling.
Yeah, the overall reviews of the show have been great, but supposedly it tanked in the ratings. Hardly anybody watched it, which is too bad. So I hope word of mouth is generated from this and people check it out. I know people probably thought it's a really weird show, and it is, but it's worth the weirdness.
You've piqued my interest for sure.
Everybody I know that has seen it have come out of it saying that it's great. So I'm glad to hear that you're on board with that.
Episode 3 is on tonight. Okay, that is my first rave. Darren, what else do you got?
All right, for my second rave, and as you guys know, I love bringing something for show and tell. From Entrada Records, a very recent release. This is the same company that did that 10 Commandments box set that I brought in for one of our earlier podcasts. So this is 2 Aaron Copland scores for Paramount Pictures, both 1949, The Red Pony, based on John Steinbeck's novel. Robert Mitchum was the star. And The Heiress, directed by William Wyler, and featuring, of course, the lovely Olivia de Havilland. So Aaron Copland, of course, is probably the greatest composer the United States has ever produced. It would be the general consensus. You guys would know him, his Fanfare for the Common Man. He scored about 8 or 9 movies in his entire career. And he was, someone that was kind of pursued by Hollywood, but he had a great concert hall career and didn't need to do it. But he was interested in contributing to the medium, so he did. The fact that he won an Oscar for The Heiress, Best Original Score of 1949. What's great about this release is it's a preservation push from Paramount to preserve these old scores. There's so many of them. Every year we're losing more and more from film history to the dustbin, whether it's props, film elements, or in this case, music. The only source they have for these today are acetate discs, which I don't know if you guys know what that is, but for those who don't, they would cut these discs similar to what you would vinyl on the recording stage. So this was the days before you had immediate playback. So you could then say to the orchestra, okay, well, on this take, you nailed this part right, but on measure 3, you were off. So let's redo this. So these are not made for long-term preservation. The master tapes that would have been recorded at the same time are long lost, deteriorated or discarded or whatever. So what they've done is they've cleaned up these acetate discs as best as they can and made the material sound as good as they can, but it's the least ideal source you can use for an old music recording. And just the fact that we still have these very important pieces of history, American film history, is great, but if only we had them in better sound and more complete. There's for sure pieces that are missing here and there. The Red Pony is very well known. Aaron Copland made a concert suite out of his score for The Red Pony, and it's been recorded and performed hundreds of times over the years. I've got 2 or 3 recordings of myself, one of himself conducting it and one of John Williams conducting it. And I think I have maybe Leonard Slatkin conducting it. Anyways, it's a very well-known piece of music. The Heiress, which he won his Academy Award for, he kind of ignored and never did anything with it after the original recording. About 20 years ago or so, another archivist made a 9 or 10-minute suite out of the score, and that's been recorded once or twice. But this is the premiere, really, of the bulk of the music from The Heiress. This is just a great, important archival release. It probably won't sell very well because Golden Age music doesn't sell like 80s big blockbuster scores do. I tried to buy it right away. I try and support these releases when I can because the more people do, the more we'll get. And this preservation drive that Paramount is conducting is very important to support as well. The music is great. It's a very well-produced CD. You got my recommendation, Aaron Copland. You can't go wrong.
Excellent. Have you ever seen The Red Pony, the film?
I haven't seen it, no.
No, me neither.
I know that gets some pretty good reviews, but it's not as fondly remembered as The Heiress by any stretch.
Absolutely. The Heiress is a great film
if
you want to check that out.
Montgomery Clift in it, too, of course, is a great early performance.
Olivia de Havilland won Best Actress for it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's one of Scorsese's all-time favorites. That is classic movie.
It's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I have the TCM copy of Red Pony sitting downstairs. I should unearth it sometime and check it out. You'd think, after based on Steinbeck novel, at least the material must be something.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's worth watching. Maybe it's not as good as The Heiress, but...
And Robert Mitchum.
Rob Mitchum.
Can't go wrong.
Rarely bad.
Excellent. Okay. Another rave from Darren. Paul.
I also have another rave. My rave is from the realm of TV. I recently finished the first season of The Expanse, so I felt
another show I haven't heard about.
It's a sci-fi.
I've heard a lot of good stuff about this.
Yeah, actually. it's a sci-fi series aired on Space in Canada. I knew season 2 was coming up, and I had heard very good things about it before, but just with so much to watch, certain things kind of get pushed away and you forget about them. Man, am I ever glad I did. It kind of fills the void of that dystopian, dark and gritty sci-fi that I haven't really had in my regular viewing since Battlestar Galactica went off there. It very much visually reminds you of that. I don't know if they're using the same special effects company or not, but very much it's got that kind of dark, gray overall look. Just high production values. The acting is really good.
Anybody in it I might know?
Thomas Jane is in it.
Okay.
And he plays a really interesting character. Basically, the premise of the show, it's set in the distant future where Earth has colonized Mars, and you've got people just kind of... The main crux of the story is you've got people that are, for the lack of better term, Martians, but they're not aliens, obviously. They're just people that live on Mars. And you've got people on Earth, and then you got people that they call belters, and they're people that live in the asteroid belt. And there's a very uneasy peace between them. There's obviously a shortage of water, shortage of certain resources, and then you got people living in an asteroid belt that they don't really have a lot of resources at their disposal. Very much like a mining colony kind of thing. So it deals with that dynamic a lot, and it's very smart in the way it incorporates certain things, like something that I wouldn't have even thought of. You see these kind of tall and skinny people walking around, and they address that saying, oh, well, you know...
Less gravity?
Absolutely. They say, yeah, he's a belter because, yeah, they've grown up in an environment where, yeah, they haven't had gravity, so you can tell that you're an earther because your body mass is denser.
Because we're all fat.
Well, not all of us are. So it deals with that, and it deals with some of the politics about it, and it starts off with a ship that comes under attack, and you're not sure who's attacked it, and you're kind of piecing together that mystery. It has a couple different storylines. They all kind of intertwine towards the end of the first season. Standout performance from Thomas Jane. I hadn't really seen a ton with him in it.
And what role is he playing?
He actually plays the detective that lives in the asteroid belt, and he's trying to track down the daughter of a very high-level military official. She's rebelled against her dad, kind of gone the Greenpeace way, and so he's kind of charged with figuring out exactly what happened to her. He can piece a little bit of the mystery together, but needs to delve into a little bit more. But yeah, they do a great job of incorporating. It's a very believable lived-in environment. Very smart, doing things that you don't necessarily see in a lot of sci-fi. And just the set design, the costumes, like something as simple as the armor from the Martians. You look at it and it just looks gorgeous, and it's not half-assed. You can tell that there's a lot of love put into it. It's not that long, 10 episodes a season, which is great.
And it's the first season?
Yeah, I think they're 3 or 4 episodes into the second season now.
Sounds less action heavy than more of a drama.
It's got some action elements to kind of satisfy that aspect, but yeah, there's a lot more. It
more about ideas than action, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the series is based on books that have been published since 2010. There's 2 authors working on it, and they publish under one pseudonym, and they issue a book a year. So they've got lots of material to work on, and I believe it's planned to be 9 novels by the time that it's out. It's a mix of novels and novellas, so they're not all long reads, but everybody I know that's read the books said it's some of the best science fiction they've read in recent memory.
I have no time in my life for new good TV shows or new good books, so please stop talking about this.
Yeah, like I said, it's got a strong cast, some recognizable people that you will have seen on other shows.
It doesn't reach the heights of Battlestar, though. One of the great shows of the last 20 years.
Right, and it's got different ideas. I'd say it has the potential to get close to it at least.
It's very high price.
It's interesting. Like I said, it deals with some interesting things. A lot of people kind of call it Game of Thrones in space. So there's a lot of chess pieces moving. They do some really interesting things with some of the characters. And not to spoil too much, but just like Game of Thrones, don't get too attached to many characters. But great storytelling. It's not just one note as far as too much action. Yeah, highly recommend it. Very good.
I've heard good stuff, and
absolutely.
One more good recommendation.
That sounds really good. I'll check that out for sure. What do I got? Okay, my next rave would be the Netflix special, David Brent, Life on the Road. This is Ricky Gervais returning to the role which made him famous. 16 years later, and David Brent has finally decided to live out his dream as the lead singer in a rock and roll band. Have you guys checked this out?
I haven't watched this yet. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. It's great to see David Brent years later, and maybe the best way to put it is it's maybe a kindler, gentler David Brent now.
Yeah, okay.
He's definitely mellowed out. He's not the boss anymore.
Yeah.
We start out the show with him working at another place where he's another office, and he's now become almost the butt of the jokes in the room. I think what Ricky Gervais is trying to say is the world has gotten a lot crueler and colder since the original Office came out.
Actually, Darren shared a Hot Ones episode where Ricky Gervais is promoting it, and he says exactly that. It's very interesting how the climate has changed, the culture has changed, and how kind of it's almost more, his character's more relevant now.
For sure. You're still laughing at the David Brent character, but it's maybe you're not laughing quite as hard. He's, I guess he was always kind of a pathetic figure, but now you really kind of feel sorry for him. All he wants to do is live his dream with his band, Foregone Conclusion. Great name. And, it's, there's almost something noble about him in this show.
He was kind of a changed man at the end of the original Office run. And he took his character in a nice way over the course of the series by doing that. And so it's nice to see him keep up that tone. And
it's very entertaining. It's, it doesn't reach the heights of The Office because that had such a different dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're in a position where we're rooting for David Brent. Right. It does maybe contain, Gervais does have a very typical formula if you've seen enough of his stuff. He always has a way of wrapping his stuff up in a very kind of sweet way to make everybody feel good. Maybe this show, the people who are ragging on David Brent throughout this thing really kind of do a 180 at the end of this. And maybe it's not that believed that everybody's all of a sudden thinking that David Brent's not such a bad guy when they've just spent the entire movie railing against him. But that's okay. It's a minor quibble. I definitely recommend checking it out if you're a fan of the original Office and you want to see.
Could you watch it without knowing who the character is?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it would work without knowing.
Because
I don't know why you'd want to. Watch The Office first for sure.
It's kind of funny when the original Office came out, the whole idea of a documentary crew deciding to go to a paper company and record a series following a bunch of random nobodies seemed preposterous. Nowadays, that's
just what TV shows are now.
Exactly. It's really hilarious how, he really kind of called that where things were heading. So anyways, yes, I recommend that. That's another rave for me. Darren, what else do you got?
All right, my third and final rave of the evening. A couple weeks ago, I watched on Netflix the recent film The Lobster. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet.
I have seen it.
Yeah, I heard of it.
It is up for Best Original Screenplay, I think.
And it deserves to be. Wow. What really struck me about this movie was the screenplay, and...
Are you going to try to describe the plot?
I will try to. I remember reading the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis several months ago, like in the spring, and being intrigued by it, and then I kind of forgot what it was about. The movie got great reviews, and I was like, oh yeah, I did want to check this out.
Remember, it's from that, I lent you the director's previous film called Dogtooth.
Oh, is this the director of Dogtooth?
So that should let you know kind of where you're heading, right?
Yeah. Okay. So
another very strange film.
What struck me about this movie, about 30 minutes into it, it reminded me of the very first time I watched Being John Malkovich, where I thought, I'm seeing something special and original here. I mean, it's nothing like Being John Malkovich, and that's a masterpiece. It's not in the league of Being John Malkovich, but it is something very nice, very special, very original. It must have been a tough sell. I can only imagine the writer-director being there in front of the money people and saying, okay, well, we've got one of the biggest stars in the world, Colin Farrell. He's going to be speaking mostly in a kind of a boring, emotionless tone throughout most of the movie. Give a quick synopsis. These characters
Good luck with the quick one.
Yeah. The characters are living in what might be the near future or a alternate contemporary reality where you have pressure on you to commit to a relationship. You need to connect with someone and get married, or if not, you're going to end up in one of, I assume, many hotels that exist. And a lot of this stuff isn't explained in the movie. You just kind of have to infer, well, this is the society they're living in. While do you remember, is it 60 or 75 days in this hotel?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's something like, I'll say 60 days.
For anyone who's ended up single in life.
Yeah, if you're single and you're not married yet, you go to this hotel. You check in.
This many days to decide to be.
Yeah, well, you can either try to connect with one of the other single people in the hotel and get married, or by the end of your term, you're going to be turned into an animal of your choice. Colin Farrell wanted to be a lobster. That's the great title of the film, The Lobster.
Still with us?
Yeah. My curiosity is piqued.
I don't want to say too much more. And John C. Reilly is
He
is wonderful in this movie. And Colin Farrell, in his last interaction with John C. Reilly in this movie, says one of the most hurtful things you could say to John C. Reilly, the man. And the character John C. Reilly is playing takes it's a wonderful, original, unique film. Some people I know have not liked it. It's not for everyone. There's no way.
I didn't love it. I think I appreciated it more than loved it.
Yeah.
I think the third act, it kind of goes off the rails a little bit. I really enjoyed the premise and the setup. Once they start getting into the forest, a lot, I think it loses its way a little bit.
It's better in the hotel, for sure. When they're in the forest, I don't know. I like where the story went, and I like how it ended.
The woman is...
It's Rachel Weisz.
Rachel Weisz, right?
Yeah. Who's... The first movie I remember seeing her in was The Englishman Who Went Up the Hill, came down a mountain. And I don't think she's aged in the 25 intervening years. She's as young and beautiful as ever, and just a great actress. I love her in everything I see her in. It's got a 2-hour running time, and it doesn't feel like 2 hours.
Really? Yeah, it did for me.
Oh, it did for you?
I thought the last maybe half an hour, 40 minutes were starting to drag.
Okay, I was intrigued and just eating up every second of this film. I really, really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend The Lobster. Fans of unique, offbeat cinema.
It sounds like it's unforgettable one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, I go to the movies to have my brain stimulated. If you go to the movies to turn off your brain, it's not going to be for someone like that. So, yeah, pick your movies wisely, but if you like something different and original, check out The Lobster.
And Dogtooth.
And Dogtooth is, wow, that's...
Yeah, what is this guy? What's he going to do next?
I don't even... Yeah. I look forward to what this director has next, for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, that's The Lobster. Okay, Paul, what else do you got?
The last thing I have is yet another RAVE. This is something that I watched probably about 2 months ago or so. It's been on my list to mention for a bit and just hasn't come up. And then I recently found out it's up for an Oscar. So I felt this is the best time to talk about it right before the award ceremony. So it's a short documentary. I found it on Netflix. It's got a 40-minute running time and it's called The White Helmets. What it focuses on are a bunch of Syrian rescue workers in the war-torn country, and they are first responders. So the minute they hear an airstrike or anything...
let me stop you right there. I've heard enough to know this will win the Academy Award for a documentary short. Wow. This is
usually every category in short category is always full of misery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No pun intended, but it leaves an impact. Like, it follows these men and women around, predominantly men, and it shows one of the most lasting images that I have in my brain even months later is it shows this group of men that have such a strong camaraderie. They're sitting around having lunch, maybe meditating, having a peaceful moment of their day, and you just hear a bomb go off in the distance, or they hear a plane approaching and they're instantly taken out of whatever moment they were in, and they're instantly attentive, and they're looking at the windows, seeing where this plane is heading, and they're gearing up and getting ready to go rescue whoever's in this blast.
Are they mostly Syrians themselves?
They are all Syrians, and they have no formal training. Towards the end of the documentary, they get into the fact that they're trying to introduce a little bit more formal training, just because a lot of these people, they come from backgrounds of being accountants or teachers.
Yeah, for sure. There's not enough formally trained people in Syria that you need volunteers who don't have the training to go out there.
And they just give up their livelihoods and literally put their lives on the line. They mention how many of these white helmets they've lost, and I want to say it's in around 100, but that might be undercutting the number. But basically, they, like I said, they're first responders, they're rescue workers. They don't care what side of the war you represent you're on. All they know is you are trapped in the rubble of this building, and they're going to do their best to save you. And sometimes they don't make it out themselves trying to rescue you. And so it's very noble. It's very humbling, restores your faith in humanity quite a bit.
And sidesteps the politics completely.
Just focuses on the humanity of the situation.
How do you make sense of that war anyways?
Exactly. And so it was refreshing to see something like this where, they just are showing what these noble people are doing to try to better the situation as much as they can. And it's pretty amazing.
I'll be checking this out soon. I'm sure it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, you came across this where?
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's in their documentary section, obviously, and it just popped up. And like I said, I didn't know much going into it, and then just recently was reviewing what's up for awards, and this is on the list for Best Documentary Short, and I hope it wins, because it is definitely worth checking out. I loved it.
Well, I almost wish the Academy every year would take these short documentaries and short live action subjects and animated ones and just put it on their website.
Yeah, a lot of them are tough to watch, tough to find.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
And the only reason
if you watch more of these, you gain more interest in actually watching the show and seeing who wins too, don't you think?
Well, this is probably the first time in the history of me watching the Oscars that I'll actually have a vested interest in documentary short. Because usually up to this point, you're just kind of reviewing the short synopsis that they give you and go, yeah, I think this will win.
Totally. You always pick anything Holocaust related.
Yeah, this will leave them weeping in the aisle. That's going to get a gold statue.
All right. Finally for me, I managed to check out the movie Inferno. This is the third, and judging by the reception, probably the last of Dan Brown's novels to be adapted for the big screen. I like the Da Vinci Code, and I apprecited Angels and Demons.
I liked you're talking about the movies?
The movie, yeah.
Right, okay.
I will admit I've read a few Dan Brown books in my life.
I've only seen the Da Vinci Code as far as the movies go.
Right.
It was okay. Didn't care at all about seeing any sequels. As far as the books go, yeah, I read the Da Vinci Code as everyone in the planet did. And there was a lot to like there, and there was a lot to criticize there. And then I read Angels and Demons, which I remember, Ron, you might remember at the time, I think I told you it's the worst book I've ever read. And I will stand by that. Wow. Angels and Demons was one of the worst, laziest pieces of shite I've ever read.
The last 10 chapters in that book are so preposterous. They jettisoned most of the stuff you're probably...
I'll never read another Dan Brown book based on how awful Angels and Demons was, but...
Right. No, I didn't read Inferno. I'm assuming that was the title of the novel. I did read the one before it.
Last Symbol?
That's the one that took place in Washington.
May have.
I actually enjoyed that one. I was hoping that would be the third movie, but I guess they...
Did he venture into new territory? Because my problem with the previous two films, and I read read the books, was that they seemed kind of carbon copy and formulaic.
Oh, all of his stuff is...
Just at the same
for
time,
sure.
Just take this out.
Take one secret society out, replace it with another secret society.
I will say, like I said, I haven't read Inferno, but the movie does take a different approach than the last two films. We kind of start off with Robert Langdon, Tom Hanks, waking in a Florence hospital with amnesia, not knowing why he's there or how he got there. And it's pretty much about him. Felicity Jones is the go-to girl in this one. Basically, it's them running around trying to figure out, Langdon trying to recover his memory and figure out the events of the previous few days and who's chasing him and why. What's going on in this movie? Seriously, I only saw this movie a few weeks ago, and really I had to look up on IMDb what it's about. It's totally forgettable. What's happening? Oh, right. An impending global virus. That's what they're trying to stop.
Isn't that so 1990s?
Yeah. It all feels dated in this.
Does it feel like a necessary sequel?
Oh, totally not. I don't know if any of these films have been necessary, but at least the first two were kind of fun, right?
It just seems to me the material is so far beneath the talent. Ron Howard and Tom Hanks. There's so much better material for that talent out there.
But I am a big fan of that type of genre of murder and mystery in foreign places, foreign locales being chased by.
When it's done well. I agree.
And this one is not. I was bored throughout the entire film, and it's one of those films where the characters are trying desperately to figure out what's going on, and you're not.
You just don't care?
Not really. I was thankful when it was over, and I was like, I think that they beat this franchise to death.
I was surprised that they were coming out with a sequel. Like
it's been a long time since the last one.
And I can't think that there's an audience that's really craving a sequel.
No. Right. The films were huge successes, though. Da Vinci Code made
like
800 million, and I think the next one made a lot of money. So I can understand why they want to do this. And Ron Howard hasn't had a genuine hit in a while. This movie didn't change things for him, unfortunately. His career's kind of taken a real downslide lately.
I don't know why this popped into my head, but your description of foreign locale and murder mystery and thrillers and so on. I just thought of Dirty Pretty Things, and so I thought I'd throw out, hey, you want to see a really good mysterious movie in a foreign locale? Check out Dirty Pretty Things.
Directed by Stephen Frears.
Stephen Frears, the great Stephen Frears.
That was one of the first films to star Chiwetel Ejiofor, and he's fantastic.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, he's really good in it. Yeah, if you want to watch a much better film. Thanks, Darren.
How did change that RANT to a rave?
Absolutely. Yeah, it has nothing to do with what I was...
The thinnest of connections there, but...
That's funny.
You're the first person I know that's seen this. I enjoyed the first two movies for what they were, and even my interest level didn't even budge from zero seeing the trailers. I just thought, this doesn't interest me at all. It seems late. Why would I go see that over some of the other movies that were out this year?
Yeah, I checked it out because a lot of the reviews had said that this was actually the best in the trilogy so far. I didn't agree.
I think it's Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Overall average is pretty low.
It's the first two weren't taking themselves so kind of serious as this film. Maybe they were having more fun with how ridiculous it was.
Yeah.
This film doesn't have any of that, but it just ends up being kind of ponderous and slow, in my opinion.
Do you think they were hoping they'd do more of these? Or
I'm sure they would. This probably officially put the nail in the coffin, which is too bad. Well, no, I guess it's not too bad if you guys weren't enjoying it.
Yeah.
Too bad for me.
I don't mind at all. I'm glad.
Right. Okay. Shall we wrap up things for another week?
Sure.
Okay. Next time we'll be back to discuss this year's Oscar telecast. Until then, please subscribe to us on iTunes and our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And feel free to leave us a comment or contact us at whyweseemovies@hotmail.com. Okay. We'll see you next week. Later.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.